Thanks again for Brad for taking the time to give us the little Mandel mini lesson there. Powerful stuff, obviously, and what an amazing online presenter Brad is. Let's give him a virtual round of applause. I think that was a really, really great session. And I just wish we could have more. Next part of the session is to have to meet some learning leaders from the Seattle area. This was originally very much a session about place and very much about Seattle. I have a personal opinion that Seattle is and should be a center of excellence around the kind of work that we do. You know, when you look at the companies that are represented on this call, there are thousands of people in the learning and development practice in Seattle. And one of my sort of side projects is to try and build that community and build that reputation. It'll help us all hire the best people. It'll help us all get to do interesting work. And the community is such a valuable asset under any circumstance. So I'd like to have each of these four wonderful people introduce themselves. I'm going to ask them to give us their job title, their role, and talk briefly about their organization and the primary kind of audiences that they deal with. So Chris, I'm going to go to you first, Chris Schaefer.
Great, thanks, Chris. We had a joke at Microsoft when Chris was there with me that to work in L&D, you had to be named Chris or have your name legally changed to Chris. so we had so many Chris's. But hey, everybody, my name's Chris Schaefer, and I do work at Microsoft. Next month, I will be celebrating my 31st anniversary at Microsoft. So I started when I was 5 years old. You all can do the math on how old I am. But and my title is Director of Learning and Development, and I run the engineering, learning, and insights team. And we believe insights and being data informed is super important, and hence the name of our team. Organizationally, we serve all organizations in the company. Because I serve engineering, and our definition of engineering is not just the developers, people writing code, but anybody in the four technical professions that we have at Microsoft. There's engineering proper, there's a couple of hardware professions, and then research. So we're just about to pass 66,000 people worldwide. That is my audience, that's my customer, that's who I obsess about. And those people, those technical roles sit in every single organization. Amy Hood, our finance lead, has a bunch of engineers in hers. Brad Smith, our president and legal department, they have engineers in their organization. So I operate horizontally across the company, and that's a little bit about me. Thanks for allowing me to be here. Welcome to the panel.
Look forward to hearing about your focus and priority with that interesting audience. Let's go to Karen. Karen Sanford, our host. Thanks again for sponsorship here in terms of your offer to make space for us. And turns out it's virtual space. Who'd have thought?
Right. Well, thank you, Chris, for that introduction. I just want to say how excited I am to be here today talking with all of you. And I really wish that we all could have gathered at the Redfin headquarters downtown, but we're leaving that calendar open for that date in the future when we're all able to meet together in person again. And I'll look forward to hosting you then. In the meantime, just as a brief introduction to myself, I've been involved in the field of learning and development for over 20 years in a variety of different roles. I've gone back and forth from higher education to corporate learning, working most recently before Redfin at the University of Washington, where I led online learning and program development for our continuing and professional education, as well as online for the rest of the university, the programs that we put on. And before that, I was Vice President of Training and Development at Safeco Insurance, where I had the opportunity to put together a corporate university there. And beyond that, I also worked as a Dean of Undergraduate Programs at City University. I did a short stint at an LMS company. So I kind of worked across the breadth of L&D during my career. In many ways, we could say that this time now of virtual learning is really what I have been working on all my career. So it's really, in a way, an exciting time for me. And I'm really also enjoying the opportunity to work with my team at Redfin in the programs that we support. So one of our primary focuses is our real estate brokerage. One of the things that I love about Redfin is that it's a combination of a high-tech company, but also a people company. And I know we're going to be talking more about soft skills, power skills, matched with the technical skills. And Redfin is a company that is so well positioned to do both of those things. So the kinds of programs that we do always have a mix. We're working across the organization in that we do new hire training for our business operations, our real estate operations, all of our agents, our managers, engineers, but at the same time, we really are focused on the kinds of initiatives that are driving business growth in the company. So sales training has been a huge emphasis this year at Redfin. We rolled out a big program at our company meeting in January. And as we're pivoting in this now all virtual world, the past 2 weeks, my team redesigned all of our new hire training that was formerly done in person to a virtual classroom sessions. I'm really excited that my team already has a lot of those skills, and because we have a lot of online programs, but there's been a bias. Real estate people really love to meet together. There are a lot of extroverted people.
Yes.
They love coming together for that new hire training. So we're trying to replicate that in a virtual classroom environment. So thank you again for inviting me to the panel today. And I'm really excited to connect with anyone who wants to after this meeting today.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen. And for anybody who doesn't know Redfin as an organization, it's a really interesting, innovative company in and of itself, and a really fascinating place to do L&D, I'm sure. Let's go to TR. TR, why don't you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your job role and your audience.
That's great. Thanks, Chris, and good morning to everybody still on the West Coast. Good afternoon to everybody joining eastward. I'm really excited to be here with everybody today to learn from all of you, share a little bit of my insights and perspective as well. I'm joining from Expedia Group at one of our newest offices on the south end of Lake Washington at my house. Like all of you, a lot of one-person offices popping up around there, so around the world. My remit with Expedia Group is, through a recent org transformation that we've gone through, is leading all of our global learning programs. So manager in leadership development, formerly lived within 19 different learning organizations across the company. We've now consolidated and brought a lot of those programs and the efforts into a central function that sits within our people team group. So I lead that on along with our learning technology and our onboarding program. So Karen, similar to you and many other companies over the past few weeks, quickly snapping into this virtual onboarding experience globally with a lot of the dynamics and country requirements. So we've shifted from learning to HR operations and legal consultants in a lot of different locations. So interested to talk and learn more about how everyone's adapting. And so I'll let you carry on, Chris, and we'll continue the discussion.
Great, thanks, TR. And last but by no means least on the panel, we have from Tableau, it's just a little small technology company here in Seattle, Nate Vogel. Nate, why don't you introduce yourself, your job role, and the kind of audiences that you work with?
Yeah, sounds good. And of course, thanks for having me this morning, and super honored. Maybe first shout out, thank you, Brad, for showing, maybe you could teach me how to make that screen on your computer. I actually thought that was a cool office space. So if you can maybe coach me and train me on that. We were supposed to be in President's Club last week for Tableau in Fiji. That got canceled. So I wish I had like this beautiful, everyone that sees me is like, oh, we should be in Fiji. So they're so depressed. So maybe someone can help me figure out how to put some water behind me. So yeah, super honored. Been at Tableau 7.5 years. I was actually ran a sales team for a publishing company for 25 plus years, and was honored to be recruited and hired at Tableau to help run training and development, learning development. So our audience is Tableau in general, full 5,000 or so employees. We help run the new hire. We call it boot camp, 2-week onboarding experience. And we just, for the first time in 7.5 years, went virtual. So that's, global. And so we definitely had some challenges and some things, lessons learned I could surely share. And then we also have, I get the fun job of now working with Salesforce. So for most of you might know that Salesforce bought Tableau this last year. And so part of my job and our team's job is now to collaborate with the, they call it, enablement folks at Salesforce and work with that audience, which is about 45,000 employees. And our mandate is to really focus on their 8,000 core, what they call enterprise account executives. So that's a new audience that we, haven't had in my 7.5 years at Tableau. So now working with Salesforce to teach and train Salesforce on Tableau, not only the product, but also the sales training. And then I have another audience, which is partners. So at Tableau, we work and scale with partners. And so we have thousands of partners globally selling Tableau. And so myself, along with about 70 of us at Tableau, we get to wake up every single day and work with our client, our customer, which is Tableau Sales. Our goal is to help them hit their number and exceed their number. And so when that happens, we get credit for some of that. And if we miss the number, that's also our responsibility. We take a lot of pride in that, both if we hit or miss. Honored to be here, and also really super honored to be with this panelists and these great companies here in the West Coast, especially at these times. One other important shout out for all parents out there, warning, I might have an 8-year-old that should be upstairs studying, but he's not listening. And I was raised by a school, my mom was a school teacher, 40 years, special ed. You would think I would be able, and I do a lot of training at Tableau. I hopefully well respected, but for some dang reason, my 8-year-old is not listening. So warning, you might see him come down and interrupt this call. And that's what we're all learning, right? Not only are we doing professionally, but also at home.
Yeah, no, awesome, Nate. Thanks. And we're happy to see any kids that pop up. My wife runs a school, an administrator at a school, and they've just moved 400 kids. It's the French-American school here on Mercer Island. And they've just pivoted within 4 days last week to move 400 kids to homeschooling, and really an extraordinary effort from everybody. And gosh, does my heart go out to parents with young children right now. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. What I wanted to do, guys, was sort of get to the pressing issue here. Some of you alluded to, the kind of programs you have and how you're having to pivot and move them online. To me, I mean, just let's kind of dig a little bit deeper into that. To me, that's the elephant in the room, is how do we operate? How do we add value as learning development professionals in a world where a lot of our tools have gone away? I mean, a very, very important part of L&D is forming communities and building culture. A lot of that happens, whether we like it or not, in face-to-face activities, big sales events, Nathan, like I'm sure you run. But I'd love to know, just let's get to it. How has work life and business priorities changed over the last 2 weeks? How are you doing? And what have you seen that's interesting or innovative in this very short period of time? Karen, do you want to go first? You started to talk about that.
Yes, well, I talked about how we had pivoted with our new hire training, but I think one of the things that's really fascinating is what we're doing as a business, and then what we're trying to do as a training department to support our pivot in the business. In our company meeting this week, our CEO, Glenn Kelman, who has got a great big smile and a warm personality, said, "The future is here." So in many ways, Redfin has been already really trying to put forth a business model that we had been using in some instances. That was a virtual business model where consumers could buy real estate directly from a company. But we were also developing a number of different technology tools that enabled our different, all of our different agents and ways that we sell real estate to use technology. Now they're have the opportunity to do every sort of the way that they conducted business in a virtual mode. So one of the first things our company did was it created on our agent tools and on our website a way for us to do virtual tours. So So our training organization is putting together a number of different virtual trainings that we're going to be offering over the next 3 months that is aligned with how our real estate brokerage has to operate in this new world. Because if you imagine, there's so many things that you could do in person before, and we still can meet in most of the states across the United States with customers in a home, but maybe it's going to be limited to 1 or 2 people in the home.
Yeah.
But we used to do strategy sessions with customers afterwards. Now, most of those will probably be virtual strategy sessions. So we're creating training on all of these different topics, like how do you do an effective virtual strategy session? How do you do an effective home tour? We have Matterport that we can do virtual tours of homes. How do you do that most effectively? And then I think the other really fascinating thing that for all those of us who have been working in online for so long is that written communication skills become so important. So some of our business leaders are quickly putting together communication training tools for agents so that they're able to do that more effectively too.
Karen, it's a really fascinating story because Redfin is really all about the digital transformation of this entire business marketplace, right? Buying and selling houses. And yeah, I think you told me before, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but your CEO, who's quite a character, was actually really a kind of face-to-face training guy. He always wanted you to, get the people energy in your sessions. Has he changed his point of view now?
Well, that is so ironic, I guess is the best way that I can say. We had developed what I think is an outstanding virtual training program for our managers. I have a very highly skilled ID team. And one of our instructional designers, who I think is on this call today, Andy Campbell, had designed a really high quality virtual training for our team managers. And our CEO was disappointed because he really wanted our team managers to come into headquarters and have this experience of meeting and interacting. So we developed a capstone for that was going to be an in-person session. And then, of course, as luck would have it, the week that we made the announcement, everyone telecommuting, was the week of that pilot. So we're looking at now, how can we offer that in a virtual fashion? So yes, I think our CEO is recognizing that during this time, all the rules have changed, and we're doing everything we can to do everything virtual at Redfin.
Yeah, great. Well, the best of luck at that. I think Mandel are helping you out as well, which is great. And I really, I'm interested, hadn't really thought about this, about the importance of written communication and concise, effective written communication in these times. That's a really, really great point. Can I go to Chris? Chris, can you what's going down at Microsoft?
Yeah.
So many events.
Yeah. So we got the work from home call, or sort of everyone who can, just a little over 2 weeks ago on March 5th. And for my team, it was a really smooth transition because we already were set up to work flexibly in our team's site and the way our team operates. So we didn't miss a beat. When everybody everyone was at home rather than an occasional person or two. But obviously for the rest of the company, it's been a huge transition. Just personally, this last Wednesday night, my wife and I talked and decided to sort of self-quarantine 100%. We'd been going to the store, trying not to hoard, but just try to prepare, and so that we could stay home for 2 weeks if we had to. And so really choosing to literally not go out has been sort of it's not a huge change from how we'd been acting, but there really is this absolute nature of it and the reality of it setting in. And then as we tried to convince our older parents, both of my wife and I, they live here locally, not to go out because they're like, oh, we're being careful, and
Yes.
going out a ton. That's been a real challenge and an interesting dynamic going on. But generally doing good. At Microsoft, we immediately pivoted to try to provide resources for employees who may never have worked from home, really just the basic 101 block and tackle. Yeah. And we created a work from home guide. And actually, just this week, Jared Spataro, who's a CVP for Office, wrote a blog post about what we've learned in the last 2 weeks at Microsoft about working from home. I just posted a link to that blog post, and in the first section, share work from home guidance, there's a link to the guide that I and a couple other people actually put together, which was written in a way that would allow other customers, as a PowerPoint deck, to use and customize for their companies. But it includes a lot of the basics that really, if you go to anybody's website or blog post or thoughts, it's all the same, right? There's just some basic things about setting boundaries at home, taking care of yourself, by taking breaks physically and eating well and staying connected with people, so important. And so some of these tips are in there, and it was fun putting it together. I feel like I moved from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence now, right? So I'm kind of a mini expert on working from home, having written the guide, and I'm just hyper aware how I'm violating many of the principles of working from home while I was creating the work from home guide. So it was sort of an ironic experience for me. But as far as the training goes, just because, and I can't go into too much detail about, I mean, I could, we don't have time, about kind of how I operate, but so much of what I do already is just online on demand. There's not very many in-person programs that my team runs, but there are other teams that locally in the business that run them. And so there's a task force that's been created to really try to put together best practices for how to design virtually. And they're tapping into knowledge and perspectives from outside Microsoft as well, which is a newer sort of an approach that Microsoft's taking at the new Microsoft. And just to try to help program owners who own and run in person, like our onboarding, our new employee onboarding, how do we convert that to virtual, and what are best practices for facilitation for the attendees, and trying to get that clarity for ourselves. So
what's happening, Chris, with things like events? I think Tech Ready, which is a massive event for technical people in Microsoft, where they all gather and in Seattle and drive up the cost of a transatlantic flight in January. Did Tech Ready happen this year? Is there thinking about, there's a lot of kind of event-based readiness and training that goes on in the company. What's the thinking on that?
Bob's team owns that. Bob Jean, who's an event owner here at Microsoft. And so I'm not in the details of that. I've seen some guidance, which is it's, cancel, or postpone, and or convert to virtual is the guidance. And so some things have been just outright canceled, others have been postponed, and they're frantically working to convert ones that they can to virtual. So on those, I don't specifically know the details, but I know that they're looking at those, and they're taking it kind of on a week-by-week basis, and giving guidance for the next events over 5 weeks, and just taking it real time as guidance in our state, where of course we're kind of a hotbed where a lot of this stuff started in the US, as well as guidance for other countries, because we operate worldwide.
Yeah, well, thanks. And I think a lot about, last night I was out for a walk in my neighborhood, which is the new thing to do, right? I've met people I haven't seen for years, and kept at a distance, of course. And I took a photograph of the internet infrastructure at the end of my street. And I have a copy of it here, which I sort of praying to, because people in companies like Microsoft and the infrastructure companies, I never thought I'd say this, but God bless Comcast. Let's just hope that remains robust, because it's almost impossible to imagine this situation without that connectivity. TR, how about in Expedia, a travel company, been in the news a lot recently, changeable times for you. How are people doing?
Yeah, so just to put it in context for everyone, over the past 4 months, we've relocated our corporate headquarters from Bellevue over to Seattle and opened up this gorgeous new campus. So that was significant change for our employee base. We're going to transition at the CEO and CFO level simultaneously, 2 roles we still have not formally filled. We then went through an organizational alignment exercise and have a reduced workforce that we've been working through and implementing. 2.5 weeks ago, we were in a town hall post that exercise to re-engage the organization. In the middle of that town hall, we get the announcement from I can't remember if it was King County or the governor's office to now go into a recommended telecommute scenario. And so in the middle of that meeting, we all disband and go home. And we are now at this point of change saturation. And we've been spending so much time working with our organization on bringing leaders and our teams through this, the massive amount of change prior to COVID-19. And the interesting shift and the challenge that we have today is we're all, whatever change curve you look at, if there's an end in sight, how do we bring an organization and individuals through to that end in sight that we believe to be where we're all going? The challenge now is, what is that end? What is evolving? And it's less about the change curve and leading through times of uncertainty when teams and leaders don't necessarily have clarity on where this situation is evolving. So our focus has really been on supporting leaders and managers' ability to be there for their teams in this really unpredictable time of turmoil for a lot of folks. I'm on the phone with our partners across the world, and the anxiety is, I don't have food on my table to give my family tonight because the stores were cleared at the bodega on my corner. And so how do we as a company support employees and the business? And the travel industry right now is being hit the hardest first. It will continue and hit other sectors, but it's a really trying time for the organization and for all of us. And so Learning's role and our communications team's role in all of this has certainly evolved and heightened. I think if there's any silver lining here, it's the forcing function that this scenario has created for us to make quick decisions around how we scale solutions and interventions, the partnership between communications and learning to support the organization. This has forced us to do a lot of the things we've talked about, but simply have to pivot and implement. So an acceleration of decision-making is the one benefit that we're seeing right now, and the ability to gain scale to impact all of our employees globally, the 60 plus countries where we find employees.
Yeah, well, Tia, obviously, we're thinking of you and your entire crew and team. You might just be a little ahead of us all in many respects. And, I'm a travel junkie, and I think I've canceled like 11 trips this year, and it's definitely going to be tough. Was there something, Tia, like if I remember, you were actually with an airline company before. Is there something that you've seen? Actually, what I took away from what you just said was aligning with the communications people is a really important thing for L&D teams to do, so that you're sort of conveying the critical messages. Is there anything else that you're seeing in your network or in your company go on that you like in terms of innovative ways to do our job?
So in our partnership here, and what's really evolved as we're also on this journey around our learning culture and infusing learning agility throughout the organization, getting really clear on the role communications has in messaging, in knowledge transfer. Certainly learning still has a role in transferring knowledge, but the partnership with communications to ensure knowledge is disseminated, and then learning being very clear on the skills required to then execute on the activities that the business is expecting and needs to deliver the results. And so just that clarity of the distinction between knowledge and skills, communications, and learning has continued to crystallize for us in this moment in time, and has been certainly very valuable for us, and given some stability where instability and uncertainty otherwise exist.
It's back to component. Carry on.
Chris, I was just gonna, if I could, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go, Chris.
I was just going to make a quick comment on communication, something that we've run into recently. And for the larger companies that have many different audiences and maybe different learning teams, trying to come up with what's the guidance that we're trying to communicate. And you know, there's sort of, you want central aligned, you want a cohesion between the guidance that's being given, and yet the uniqueness in different audiences and even different countries and locations is going to be different based on local guidance and situations. And so it's really this tension between the alignment that you want and the autonomy that you want to give people, right? And if you over align, then it waters it down. It's not helpful for everybody. And if you over autonomize, then it's chaos, right? There's no control. It's confusion. And so finding that balance of how do you align, right, to these principles, and then empower people with the autonomy that are more locally, that can then customize and express that, but still stick to the aligned pieces of whatever you're trying to communicate. That's something we're wrestling with right now, but I just wanted to share that because it's germane to the communication point.
Certainly, I think that is at the nexus of the challenge that we're facing, is that balance. So spot on.
Nate, could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing? I mean, you've cancelled. We've all gone through the cancellation phase where everything cancels. Kind of what's next? How are you bootstrapping the next phase? What do you see that you like in your organization?
Yeah, a couple things, and also thanks for everyone. A bunch of chats on my last comment about homeschooling, and so I've already got some best practices. Thank you. By the way, kids are welcome, and animals. I got my dog sitting right next to me. I think our animals are happy, or we're all working from home. So, so thanks for everyone saying that. I think how is it going? How we're doing? I think it's already been said. Maybe I'll have a little different context or spin on it. One, I'm just thankful to work at a technology company. I spent, 20 years in publishing. To me, it was, one of the reasons why I got out was just so exciting to be here in Seattle, and so many incredible companies like, Microsoft, Redfin, and Expedia, but also the incredible startups that are, all over the place. So I 7.5 years ago got out of publishing and into technology, and I'm just very thankful. The other panelists have said, and Tableau was the same way. A couple weeks ago, we all got, sent home and virtual. And for our teams, many of us were already working virtually and know how to connect, internationally. But it's still been a struggle. You have the constant, just folks that aren't that good at it. They don't mute their phones, or you know the drill. They don't know how to engage. And we had to run boot camp, virtually. So we had to train our 50 some odd speakers, and some localization issues and time zone issues. And so I just think content, and just I kind of try to remind everyone, I'm just thankful. I'm thankful we work at a technology company. I'm also just thankful to be employed. We should all, in all of our companies, we should continue to promote. If we're hiring, we should. I just met with a friend 2 days ago. And by the way, instead of coffee, tea, we just basically met up, and he just lost his job. He's got 2 little kids, and he just doesn't have enough money to pay the bills. So I was able to help out, and I'm fortunate that I can. And so I'm really, really honored and we should continue to just promote that we work at some companies that, number one, we have jobs, and I think we'll weather the storm, but a lot of other companies can't. So if you have, and there's lots of L&D professionals on here. So let's pass on. If we're hiring, like I know at Salesforce, I checked this morning, Salesforce has 1,927 roles open globally. At Tableau, we have 369 roles open. I have 3 on my team alone. Let's just continue to promote that our companies are hiring, and that's kind of one thing. You asked Chris, how is it going? I just kind of remind people that. I think our team has been, in some ways, appreciative. Now that we have to go virtual, we kind of we miss each other. And so I think there's just, context is everything. I think leadership matters. So I'm just checking in with people. And I've got a couple peers of mine on this, so they're going to post a few things. So one thing I'm also thankful for, Tableau offers software for students for free. So if you have students in college or in high school or junior high, I asked Emily, who's just a superstar L&D person at Tableau. I think she knows many of you, worked at the Gates Foundation and also part of ATD. But just want to make sure Tableau is for free for students. And also kind of second comment, Chris, so context and leadership matters, but also our technology can serve and help a lot of other companies out there. I was honored to be on the call with Mark Benioff, our CEO of Salesforce, and he was talking about, hey, first focus on wellness, focus on meditation, focus if there's things you need to do personally. He mentioned family first, which I was very honored, and very similar to Tableau and our leadership. Kind of just hearing that, I thought was a really strong message. I had a new employee that just started last week. She got 3 kids, single mom. Man, I think those messages make a huge difference when you hear family first. So I just think it's so important that if our companies can help other companies through this. We believe at Tableau, I always say, if you follow me on LinkedIn, long live data. It's not about Tableau. I think data will make the world a better place, and data-driven decisions. And I've seen Tableau, and we have on Tableau Public a free site that people can see some of the things that we're doing with as we talked about earlier, the curve and the data around this incredible thing that our whole world is struggling with. And people are pinging me a ton. Hey, is this data source correct? Is this right? So that's one thing that's beautiful about Tableau and a lot of our technology is that it helps people really understand and get insight and make better decisions with data. So if our companies can serve out there, and many companies I think are going to be struggling. I think, as one of the things we said, I was along with our sales leadership here at Tableau, go serve first, sell second. Go listen, go see what problems our companies are having. If not, just check in and don't sell. I think, we'll get through this, and Tableau will, hopefully live another day. But most importantly, I think our technologies, is surely for these companies that are highlighted today. I'm honored to even be on this panel, and I think context is everything. So Chris, that's what we're doing a ton, and Readiness has the honor to speak to many of these folks internally at Tableau, and I think the message is resonating. But it's just, unfortunately, it's just starting. So I think we've got a journey ahead, and all of us got to work together. Also, just maybe connect to our communities, right? Just like we said, there's restaurants that are not, so support them, do online, do anything we can to support folks outside of our normal workspace. So I just think that's just something that I'm kind of trying to serve and lead by example there.
Great points, Nate. I think social responsible companies are so great to work for. Companies that are having a better journey through the downturn so far can do a lot to help. We as individuals can do a lot to help, starting from just feeding our friends to helping people find opportunities and stuff. And there is a ton of opportunity out there still, which is great to see. I wanted to make sure that we had time to hear from everybody on the call, but there's 2 more questions that I want to specifically ask. This point of community, the value of community, the value of leaning in and helping each other and finding resource and finding jobs, frankly. This is the kind of work that Darren and Erin, who run this Learnapalooza community here in Seattle, do so well. They really have great energy. There is an event, I think, currently planned for the June timeframe, and I just wanted to ask Darren if he could bring us up to date with what's going on with Learnapalooza, the event, and what are the opportunities to help this wonderful community stay connected.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So like everybody, Learnapalooza is thinking about what do we do if we're all working remotely in the June timeframe. So as of right now, June 19th, we're still scheduled to run our event. We're going to make a call probably mid-April. We're going to wait and see how things go. See if we level off with this curve. We have been talking to our venue, the Global Innovation Exchange out in Bellevue, right near here near Seattle, on what that would mean if we did shift. And they're working with us on what that could look like. Do we shift to later in the summer or in the fall? So we won't cancel our event, but we will reschedule if necessary. By the way, for those of you, just as a couple of other side notes, Elliot Macy started what he's calling Coronavirus Learning Project. So if you haven't signed up for it, it's a great online community. And one of the things that they're tracking is all the events that have been canceled or that are continuing on. So a lot of the events that are in that May, June, July timeframe haven't been canceled or rescheduled yet, just because we know that things change. And so Learnapalooza is in that same category as, you know, we're kind of waiting and seeing. We've talked to a lot of our sponsors as well, and one of the great things from our sponsors is that they're pitching in to do events like this. So Mandel is great, and love that they're part of this community. We've got Soapbox, Get Abstract, Geo-Teaming, they're all lined up to do some events with us virtually. So in the next few weeks, you're going to see some posts from Learnapalooza through different channels that will do something probably not quite like today, in that we're talking about, what are we doing from a remote workforce, a little bit more on that learning. So I think that in the next few weeks, we're all going to want to say, hey, now that this is kind of our new world for a little while anyways, is what does that look like from a learning perspective, and how do we get better at these things? So John Chen from Geo-Teaming is really anxious to talk about digital team building. We've got people from Degreed that are talking about, how do we utilize a learning experience platform. So you'll hear from us and our sponsors on some Zoom meetings, probably some Facebook Live events, but really appreciate Mandel partnering with us on this, and Chris, you leading the charge to kind of get everybody prepped for what we're in for. Love hearing from the leadership. And then Mandel, I mean, some really great stuff on what we could be doing to make our programs better anyways, whether it's in person or virtually. So turn it back over to you. But yes, we're still planning on the event. If you haven't checked it out, learnapalooza.info is where you can find all the cool stuff that's going to be happening at the event. And we'll keep you posted.
Great, thanks, Darren. Aaron, why don't you turn your video on so we can see you as well? You're one of the great leaders of that community, and say something to us. There we go.
Yeah, and I didn't get my Learnapalooza background quite right. Sorry. Thank you so much for the support.
You can teach Nate how to do that.
Settings, and it even happens on the free version, I learned, because that's all I use. So you get to see me in my true element, which is a little bit funky and technologically less facile than I'd like to be. No, the only thing I would add to all the great comments that we've heard, thank you so much to our panelists for sharing with candor and humility what they're going through, and the advice that they have as we're all grappling with this is just to underscore the service first, and practicing. Our Boeing VP is really good about talking about practicing a little bit of grace, for everyone as we're trying to pivot. And I'm deeply aware of privilege as a middle class white collar knowledge worker, and I'm hoping that just everything that we're learning and doing and supporting as learning professionals can help us get through this COVID crisis, get through what evolution in L&D means in the corporate and even the home space now. And just thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you, Mandel, for helping this come together today. And if you want to keep the conversation going, I think come June 19th, we're all going to have a lot to talk about, and maybe we can do a massive retrospective on what we can do differently and better. So thanks for letting me chime in.
Thanks, Aaron. I love your funky backdrop there. That works actually pretty well. Yeah, not to put too fine a point on it, people, providers and supporters of this community, the ones that Darren named and our friends Mandel here, these companies face a tough road ahead too. So if there's ways that you can incorporate their services in what you're doing, that's a great way to give back to the community and make sure that when we come out of this, we still have these great resources available to us. So that wasn't the purpose of this, but it's worth saying out loud. Spend some money with training vendors and training technology vendors. I wanted to just open it up for conversations from anybody on the call. And I thank the panel, and panel by all means chime in, but I'd love to get people's comments on great approaches, great innovation that they're seeing at this time. You simply just have to turn your video on and unmute yourself, and I'd love to hear from you if you have questions for the panel or just something you want to get off your chest.
And if you do have a question or a comment that you'd like to make online, we encourage you to use the hand up just so that we know that you have a comment or question to make. It just might make it easier as we work through everybody. Also, the chat is there if you'd like to post there as well.
Well, people are working up the courage to jump in and ask a question or make a statement. I wanted to share a fun thing that my team did yesterday. We'd started doing these monthly lunches where we get together and play a game. A board game or something like that. And when we went all virtual, we said, well, how can we continue to do that? So yesterday we kind of experimented with playing Pictionary. Everybody was virtual, and a person would share their screen and they'd bring up OneNote or PowerPoint, whatever, these are Microsoft apps, and then they would draw the picture. And there's a website that'll generate Pictionary words for you at different levels of difficulty. And so one team would pick the word and they'd private message it to the one person on the other team, and then they'd have to draw. We had a fantastic time. The team said it was the most fun that they'd had, the best meeting they had all month, and it was just a great way to connect and to have fun, and it wasn't that hard. And so I think there's going to be creative ways like that, even at home with your family who might not all be in the same physical location. So I just wanted to share that.
Chris, this is Nate. I love it. In fact, we were trying to connect more as a team. So we did, and I stole this idea from some of my great trainers doing boot camp. We did Throwback Thursday. So everyone on the team had a throwback on Slack channel, a picture of them when they were kids, and it was so fun, and just being creative, and also it was a really nice human connection for the team. We had a lot of fun with it, and so we even every day we're trying to at boot camp we picked a theme, sports Wednesday, so people could share maybe their favorite sports team around the globe and why. And anyways, love your idea. I'm going to steal that, and hopefully maybe those ideas we just shared might help others.
Hey, this is Eric Gerard, and I just wanted to say, let me turn on my camera. This has been excellent. Thank you very much. As far as a virtual event, this is probably one of the best I've been on so far. So well done, everybody, for pulling this together.
Well, it's our first one, so
yeah. Well,
not true for Mandel, but for me.
No, it's been really good. And as somebody who's interested in joining the Seattle L&D community, I feel really good about this. So thanks.
Well, you're most welcome.
Hi, this is Jules. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jules.
Hi, really grateful to be here, and really grateful to see that you all found a way to make this happen. Not surprising, given the source. But Aaron actually asked a question earlier that I was curious about hearing an answer to, and it was, are you distributing decision-making capability as a way to accelerate in this time? So I'm just curious if anybody has any ideas there. Yeah.
Tell us quickly, Julie, what kind of work do you do? What's your connection to the community?
Yeah, I'm a leadership coach and organization development consultant. I'm on the local OD board, and
awesome.
I've been a big fan of Aaron and Darren's work, and saw you and a lot of others along the way. And yeah, just really, I admire many of you from afar, and I'm really grateful to be here.
Anybody can speak to distributed decision-making? I see a next generation participant there with TR.
I'll chime in here. In terms of distributed decision-making, I think that a lot of that is about building effective teams. And so one of the things we've been trying to do at Redfin is we have all of these really short-term, high-priority projects, is put together teams of people. I have a whole team of field trainers who have real specific expertise in how to deliver and engage with our agents in the field. We have instructional designers. So putting those teams together, and I really like to push that decision-making out to the team to come up with recommendations because they do fantastic work. So I'm such a fan of distributed decision-making at any point. And I think it's only through empowering people to be able to make those decisions do you allow your team members to grow and develop too.
Thanks, Karen. Somebody likes apples to apples. That's a big favorite in our house. It was when the kids were growing up.
Also, in terms of virtual game night, I've been making up all kinds of games that are particular to virtual spaces. So we played Apple to Apples, where we just called out a word and everybody had 60 to 90 seconds to go take a picture with their phone of something in their house that represents whatever that word is, and then show it on the screen. So there's a lot of ways. If ping me, I'll put my email in there. I've been working on many, many virtual games where the camera is the eyes and people have to create things. Anyway, it's a lot of fun.
I love it. In the spirit of resources, there's a not-for-profit that I've done some work for called Playworks. And if you have kids at home, Playworks is an organization that does recess. They make recess a valuable activity in schools. And I found out yesterday they're doing online virtual recess on Facebook Live. So if you have kids that you need to get playing and active, they're doing it at a couple of points during the day. Go check out playworks.com and look for their virtual recess. Brilliant, brilliant idea.
And I heard that a school had actually held their graduation ceremony or some kind of ceremony virtually in Minecraft, where all the kids joined and they had their avatars and the principal was there. They had a virtual event and it worked out really great. So people are being really creative.
The next generation are going to have much more interesting virtual meetings using tools like Minecraft.
Chris, I can say one thing too, just on answering the executive or dispersed leadership. So first, I think it is important. And so, asking teammates and so on to make decisions. The one thing I can surely relate to here at Tableau, all our executives are available. I mean, they're not traveling, they're not on flights, and by the way, Expedia and team promise, as soon as we are, I travel 150,000 miles a year. I promise you we'll be going and using travel industry. I'm honored to say I'm almost at 4 million miles flown. So I hope I personally try to help support the travel, hotel, and travel, flight industry. But I will say to you, and yes, I will use AAA, and I'm a AAA member. So I'm with you, whoever just chatted that. But boy, our executives they're home. They're available. It's it actually has been surprising that how, if you want to connect with potentially executive, you could just quickly chat them, or many of them are now online. And I know for my Tableau executives, they're always with customers or in meetings. So just a little shout out. This might be a good opportunity to have some really good executive engagement and ask for that time to connect with them. So just a little shout out. You can even do Throwback Thursday and have a little fun with them too.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Chris, first of all, for organizing this event, but also for the great service he's done to our community with the podcast that he's been putting out over the past, I don't know how many months. Learning is the new working. I know when I go out for my walks at night, I'm always listening to whatever the newest episode is. It is so well done. And I was kind of sad when I heard his latest one saying he wasn't sure whether it was relevant in these times or in the future. And I just wanted to say, Chris, that it's incredibly relevant and you've done such a fantastic job with it. So congratulations. And I hope that you continue it because it's a great resource for our community.
Thanks.
Karen, you beat me to it. I was going to say the exact same things. I'm not going to repeat it, but just know we couldn't feel, more the same. I mean, it truly, and Chris has been a fantastic partner of Mandel's over the last couple of years and absolutely priceless, and this event to be included. So thank you so much, Chris. Sure appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, I did have a little kind of like, is what I'm doing even valuable kind of moment earlier in the week. So we put out a little quick 10-minute podcast and of course it's fun, but I have all these podcasts that I recorded before and without giving them some context, I wasn't sure that it would be the right thing to do. But you could all help me by sharing stories and names of people who were responding to this crisis in the learning and development context with innovation and humility, and from a human perspective, that's the stories I'm looking for. Thanks. I'm going to wrap it up. And you can just tell me if you need more of these. But I thought I'd share something, a resource, which is a book that I read recently. My son is he's a a practitioner of improvisation, improv, like improv theater, comedic improv. And he's at USC and he's the head of the improv team. And I read this book by a guy called Robert Poynton. And he looks at the sort of philosophical underpinnings of improv. How to, what are the rules that make it work and make it funny? And they really apply to corporate and working life. I mean, in amazing kind of ways. And one of the rules of improv is that everything is a gift. Whenever somebody puts you in a situation in an improv scene, and they set up a situation and they hand over to you and put you kind of in the spotlight, it's critical that you accept what they give you as a gift. It doesn't work if you say, no, it's not a chicken, it's a bucket, right? You have to take the chicken and you have to do something with it and you have to hand a gift to somebody else. And one of the ideas that Robert Poynton looks at is how to make everything a gift. And so we're all in tough situations to varying degrees. We all find ourselves operating in ways that we hadn't planned. And the question is, how do we make that situation a gift? How do we have a mindset where that's giving us opportunities to do things that we couldn't do before? This meeting was a gift. Thanks, Mandel. Thanks, Redfin. Thanks, panelists, Chris, TR, and Nate, and Karen. Fantastic. Thanks, everyone, for giving us a little bit of time and a little slice on your screen, which I'm sure is a busy screen. Yeah, let's figure out how to do improv online. That's what I'm going to get my kid to do when he finally gets home this weekend. Well, thanks, people. Take good care of yourself.
Have a great weekend.
Stay in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Redfin. Thank you to our leader panel. Yay.
Great job, everybody. Good work.
Take care.